and welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au, and I have with me the co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Dr. Anna Ouspenskaya.
Chris, thank you very much, and I'm so happy to be back here with you and participating and co-hosting this program for today's show.
Yes, we'll be your host for today. This is part 3 of the documentary of Beethoven's Symphony No. 7, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, as well as produced by, as you see on the screen, the Architects of Music.
And you know, Chris, people often ask me, how do you guys produce such incredible content? And you know, for us, for our community, and for myself personally, it's our shared passion for connecting music and musicians and audiences from all around the globe.
Before we go on to the development section, I think it's important to step back from all of these details and get a sense of what Beethoven has accomplished on a larger scale. I return again to that mystifying section in the introduction where the static matter of Beethoven's universe hovers. In ways, it's the most astounding passage in the work, and yet one that's generally just tossed off by conductors and listeners alike. It's like, come on, let's get to the good stuff. But when those inert sounds contract, then expand, and begin to change in shape and frequency, they become energized and form an atom. That's it. And from that infinitesimal speck of rhythmic sound, Beethoven has literally generated this entire exposition, this astonishing array of variations of this motive to construct new musical episodes. That single cell, dum-ba-bum, bum-ba-bum, which, like a living organism, splits, multiplies, and evolves. Clearly, this technique recalls the Fifth Symphony's first movement, where everything develops from a mighty, compact, concentrated motive. In the Fifth, of course, it's... At least he had 2 different pitches there to work with, right? Here, Beethoven limits himself to a mere blip of rhythm and a single pitch, and accomplishes the seemingly impossible. So after that raucous close to the exposition, a rising E major scale in the strings, with the unnecessary roughness from the rest of the orchestra. As they hammer away on the offbeats, you heard, these elements, they interlock to create this rhythm. Now Beethoven moves it up a third. A pause, and the development begins in C major with the motive. And just as in the exposition, the motive splits downward to form a C major triad. And the development section proceeds now. It's a series of neatly delineated episodes, all of them generated from and driven by. First, we have a light scherzando episode in the strings. It's sort of a round in 5 voices, starting with the cello and bass. Then the first violins enter. They're the second voice. Then the second violins and violas. Then the oboe. Then the flute and bassoon. Then they all align vertically for a big crescendo on these harmonies. reached a new episode with the first violins in a round with the cello and bass in C major, then 2 bars of there's our favorite rhythm on a dominant 7th chord in the winds, while underneath a dashing flamenco-like rhythm in the violins. And we reach E major. And there, an abrupt switch from E major to C sharp major, or D flat major, take your pick. But it resolves like so, to F major, very gently. And now another scherzando in 3-bar phrases, with the motive darting all around the woodwinds, like so. There's 3 bars in F major, 3 bars in C major, 3 bars in G minor, 3 bars in D minor, This is all Beethoven's brilliant spinning out of this tiny cell in the development section. Now, a dramatic episode with the motive as an ostinato, that is a repeated figure, in the winds, starting very softly, with some intense dissonance, and the low strings rising in thirds. They're answered by the violins in octaves. And that thunderous climax with the winds ascending, at the same time the strings are descending. And then D minor led to A minor, to the E dominant chord, which means that our tonic, A major, and the recapitulation can't be too far away. And when raw, primal power is needed, Beethoven eliminates all of the harmony and resorts to bare octaves. And all of this, everything I've played, is based on that tiny rhythmic cell. And listen how Beethoven now ramps up the intensity by changing the intervals between the notes, one at a time. It's higher again, leading to E, which again splits, and a stunning recapitulation with a fragment of the motive in the winds and the timpani, driving the music ahead. And now, just as he did at this point in the first movement of the Fifth Symphony, Beethoven interrupts the recapitulation and adds an oboe solo. This one is sunny and pastoral. And again, the all-important motive is used in a variety of ways, not only in the oboe melody, but also in the inverted counterpoint in the other winds. And a gentle violin ostinato. All of this simultaneously, all going on together. In the subdominant key of D major, then it moves to a wistful D minor, with sustained string harmonies. It's rather tranquil in the midst of all of this rhythmic electricity. And this has all been a fascinating detour of sorts. And Beethoven now resumes the recapitulation where he left off when the oboe took over. Here is this serene passage, starting with the oboe solo. And now the recap is back on track and proceeds as did the exposition, but in the tonic key of A major.
Wow, that was quite something.
Yeah, a lot of insight. And, well, I have a question to Chris and actually everyone who is watching. Usually, Chris, you start by asking me a question. Now, let's do it in reverse this time, if you don't mind. Would that be okay?
Of course, yes.
All right, my question is, we just heard a very condensed version of, we can call it, in-depth analysis of Beethoven writing. To me, it felt also very entertaining. But other than my feelings about it, Chris, do you really want to know those details about the construction and, you know, all the stuff Larry is talking about? And if so, why? Or if you don't really see the point in it, then why so?
I think if you're already here and watching this documentary, you're definitely someone who appreciates music and loves music to a certain degree. Otherwise, you'd be watching, I don't know, cat videos or something completely different. You wouldn't be on this part of the internet if you weren't already quite interested in either Beethoven or classical music or music in general, and you want to know more about symphonic writing. And so if you're already here, I feel like you would definitely want these kind of insights, especially from someone who's really well informed and actually presents it in such a brilliant way. There are many books you could read about Beethoven and his symphonies, which have even more in-depth analysis about every measure and how everything works. But this is a really brilliant way of delivering the kind of insights that I find very inspiring. And as someone who's already a musician who is really interested in it, it just feels whatever you're playing, whether you're an orchestral musician or a pianist or a vocalist, this is always going to inform your understanding of music. And mainly because, and this may be a little digression, but because I think, especially in the development of the fugato passages, this kind of writing leads to, for me, like a romanticism, a romantic writing, where things are filled up with more complexity. I feel like classical form and Baroquean technique is meshed with romantic harmonies, and that's where you get this romanticism, especially late romanticism, where you have all these different lines flowing everywhere. And so ultimately, if you're interested and you're keen to know more about this kind of music, you would want to know these insights. The only time you don't want to, I think, is when you go into a concert hall and a live experience and you just want to be washed in this kind of music and you don't want to have to think too much. You want to feel and dive and, immerse yourself. What do you think?
That's a very comprehensive answer. I always wonder because, being a musician all my life, I always want to hear and understand the people who are on, let's say, the other side of the ramp. Me being on stage and the audience being in the concert hall, I want that connection. I want to understand what they think, what they're interested in, and what they are not interested in. Just as much important to me as what people are interested in. And to me, these details are extremely fascinating in itself, just as a human activity by Beethoven, taking one little rhythmic pattern and turning it into such a momentum, such a driving force for the storytelling. To me, that's fascinating in its own, and it's extremely inspiring because that kind of leads me to what to look for in Beethoven's music when I'm preparing my own performance of that music, be it sonatas or chamber music or concertos, doesn't matter. That kind of gives me an insight what to look for, because, the score looks plain, white sheet of paper, basically, as we said when I was a student, with a caviar spread all over it. But you got to make sense of it as a performer, and perform it in such a way that you make an emphasis on something which is more important in one way or less important in another, three-dimensional presentation. It gets perpetually more complex from that point. So for me, Larry's lectures are maybe not so much informatively eye-opening, but inspiring, just like you said, very inspiring, and driving my own search in my own profession, basically. But how is it for people who are not professional musicians? Like you said, people who come to the concert hall just to be washed by the emotion of it, by the development of it. Does it stop there, or does it does that experience kind of give a spark to more exploration, to the desire to learn more what's behind the scenes? I'm always interested in behind the scenes of Hollywood, behind the scenes of some car factory, behind the scenes of constructing a skyscraper. But that's just me. I don't know if everyone is like that.
Well, I think a lot of the time, what's interesting about the human condition and our human experience is that there's always different levels of engagement, whether you're somebody who's interested in movies or literature or food or travel, even architecture. There's always different levels. There's always the entry point to something. Let's pick, I don't know, let's say you'd like to travel, right? There's all these different places you can travel, which are very easy, accessible. It's fun. It's not difficult for you, right? Like whether it is going to Rome or Paris or London, right? Like these are places that are designed in a way to attract you. And then there are places that require a lot more kind of detail. Maybe even if it's within Italy or something, you go to the smaller towns or certain towns that are known for certain things that are more historically informed, as opposed to something that's immediately attractive. And so there's always depth to that. And then you can, of course, can go into history or architecture or the culture and the food of that place. And what I'm trying to bring is that music is very similar. If you just like listening to simple, very catchy melodies, there's something for you. If you're interested in very complex rhythms, and there's jazz perhaps, or if you're interested in something of a depth, emotional and philosophical and metaphysical, maybe classical music is something for you. And so there's a bit of everything for everybody. If you're really interested in film music and how that just like dives you into something exploratory and emotional, there's something that for you. So I think that it's the level at which you're at in that art form. And there's always, even for food, there's like, quote unquote fine dining, but you don't have to go to fine dining. You could always go to more where did this food come from, and go to like a small town in China and see how the people in the rural areas eat and live. And so that's or anywhere in the world. And I think that's what's beautiful about the human experience. There's always different depths and different insights you can get because our human experience has been so long, our history, right? And so that's really quite a fascinating thing. As long as it's not lost, I think what's really fascinating about classical music is that because of its popularity or whatever you may want to call it, it's retained so much of its history. There's so much that's lost as well. There may be some manuscripts, things that Brahms burned because he didn't think it was good enough that we would probably like to have kept.
That's a very good point. Let's make sure we don't throw away what we think maybe just scrap notes somewhere, because sometimes it's very hard for the creator themselves to judge the value of some sketches. Oh, there was just a sketch, let's throw it. But then their sketches may be really interesting and important to others. So keeping your records. And on that note too, there's like all these libraries that were burnt down during wars. The Great Library of Alexandria, for example, or like the great libraries within China that were burnt down through wars and other invasions. And we've got limitless manuscript things that people have burnt to crisp because of fire. And so
what I'm trying to say is that our human experience is so broad. It just depends on how curious you are. And if you're someone like you, Dr. Anna, who's very curious about every little detail behind the scenes, and then of course it's like a wealth of things to explore. But if you're not as curious, or you're not in that mood for that thing, then yeah, I think that's what's really beautiful about it. And this documentary is for people, is designed for people who love the music or is enjoying the music, but want just a little bit more, and it just helps fuel that love, I think.
And I believe Larry's documentary, his narrative, which inspired this film documentary and that collaboration on making these films, his narrative is right there at the point, at the entry point where people may be a little bit curious, but not sure if they really want to invest a lot of time in learning a lot more. So
Exactly.
he makes everything so accessible and plain English, not so much, terminology dumped on people right away. So I think that's really an inspiring point and a very, very good lead he gives everyone to see what's out there if you just let your curiosity lead you a little bit more in depth. And I find going in depth more, you discover the amazing humanity behind every creation, and it just makes life worth living.
Oh, absolutely. And I just want to end by pointing out before we kind of move on to our next part, because I think this may not be addressed properly, or it could be, we don't know, because we're also watching this, sometimes for the first time, just like you, our audience. But what I love is the transition back into the recapitulation, the magical transition of the recapitulation. I think it's one of the most incredible things about genius composers like Beethoven, Mozart, and Haydn, etc. It's like the way they transition in, and all of a sudden the oboe takes over, and there's this detour. There's all these little surprises, and I think that's where the enjoyment comes from. Where you understand the structure, you understand the basic principles, and then there's a surprise. Or, you go to a restaurant and there's like a four or 5 course meal, and you kind of know what to expect, appetizer, first course, second course, something in between, and then a dessert. And yet sometimes there's a surprise. There's something that comes unexpectedly, and it's a delight. And I think that's the brilliance of great artists, that are able to use structures and yet surprise you with something within it. So.
And a very delicious surprise in this symphony, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
And many more to come.
Exactly. So we want to make sure we thank our team and collaborators for making this possible. First of all, designing it in such a way that is really interesting for us, but also hopefully our audience here as well. New Media Productions, Virtual Concert Halls, Architects of Music, and of course, Larry Rapchak.
And we want to also thank everyone else who is involved with our programs. Please check out all these wonderful companies run by great artists, musicians, and managers and entrepreneurs who have wonderful initiatives in the modern universe of so many possibilities. They organize this chaos and channel it into production of great concerts, events, films. We are very grateful to those people for adding their expertise, energy, and resources to our initiatives and supporting us. Thank you very much. Check out our Music and Musicians Daily Live Show. Check out our series of many other productions. We present artists, concerts, educational programs, film projects. We are on many platforms. Just about, I want to say, all the major platforms. And if another new major platform shows up, we certainly will be on it. So you can find us. Please like us, join our channels, subscribe to our channels. It's all free, public content. You don't have to pay a penny to learn about the artists, the music, and education and everything. It's all free for access to everyone who is curious and interested. Visit please our website to see the upcoming events in many concert halls with many orchestras, including most prestigious like Carnegie Hall. There's a lot we're doing because there's a lot of us. It's a big community now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do stream on so many different platforms. We want to give a big thanks to our partners. And with that, please continue to join us on part 4 of this Beethoven 7 documentary series. Until next time, happy music making. Bye.
Bye.